Hi, everyone. My name is Gabriel Mitchell, and I'm the Director of Undergraduate Studies at the University of Notre Dame at Tantur and the Jerusalem Global Gateway. I'm also a doctoral candidate at Virginia Tech University, and my dissertation focuses on the role of energy and foreign policy in the Eastern Mediterranean region. Today, I'm going to talk to you about water diplomacy between Israel and Jordan. In November 2021, the governments of Israel and Jordan signed their largest ever cooperation agreement, which will see the construction of a major solar power plant in the Hashemite Kingdom to generate electricity for Israel, while a desalination plant established in Israel will deliver water to Jordan. This MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, facilitated by both the United Arab Emirates and the United States, marked a significant moment for the two neighbors who share a long history of conflict and cooperation on matters pertaining to water security. It also demonstrated the possibility of exchanging environmentally friendly natural resources, in this case, water and solar energy, as a way of increasing regional stability and supporting green policies. And here to talk to me about the agreement and what it means for the people of the region is Dan Blumenthal. Dan is the Department of Energy Attaché at the U.S. Embassy here in Jerusalem, and someone knowledgeable not only about the energy initiatives taking place around the region, but also the technology that is enabling these projects to be realized. Daniel, thank you so much for agreeing to take part in this conversation today.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
So I was curious if you could start us off by briefly explaining how this arrangement works. How would Israel desalinate water, in other words, convert seawater into drinking water and deliver it to Jordan? And how would Jordan produce solar power and deliver it to Israel?
Sure. We'll start with the water side. For the water, many options are possible. Israel could leverage the increased capacity of already planned desalination plants, or it could build new desalination plants to meet the needs of the agreement. Since Israel already supplies drinking water to Jordan under previous agreements, the additional supply under the new agreement could leverage the existing infrastructure that Israel uses to transport water that it sells to Jordan. And Israel is already upgrading its infrastructure to handle its own additional needs. For solar electricity delivered from Jordan to Israel, a commercial arrangement involving the United Arab Emirates would build an array of photovoltaic panels in Jordan. The site has not yet been determined, and the crossing point from Jordan to Israel, where it would enter the Israeli transmission grid, has also not yet been selected. But there are technical working groups actively working on siting of both the panels and the transmission grid connections. The declaration of intent that was signed among the three countries, as you mentioned, lists about 600 megawatts of electricity and 200 million cubic meters of water annually. These can be considered initial phase, but we'll use those as a baseline for some context. In terms of electricity, 600 megawatts is about 1% of Israel's projected electricity generation needs in 2030. And about 4% of Israel's desired solar electricity generation capacity in 2030. And that's based on Israel striving towards 30% of its energy coming from renewable energy sources. In Israel, that means solar electricity predominantly. On the water side, 200 million cubic meters per year can be compared to the current 100 million cubic meters per year that Israel sells to Jordan. And 200 million cubic meters is about 1/4 of Israel's current annual desalination capacity, which is already set to go up significantly with the two more desalination plants that will be coming online in the next few years, as I mentioned.
Thanks for that introduction. I think you did a really excellent job of explaining both the existing mechanisms that are in place and also how these this new project, this new initiative will plug into the already existing plans on both sides. So how does this impact the average Israeli or Jordanian?
Well, let's start on the Jordanian side. It means more drinking water in Jordan, which is in a constant water shortage. Supply is only about 75% of demand on average. And according to the United Nations, any country with an annual average water supply of less than 500 cubic meters per person faces what they call absolute scarcity. And in Jordan, to put it in context, the annual average is about 150 cubic meters. And the way it works in Amman, as an example, is residents receive their municipal water approximately 1 day a week, and then they fill tanks and cisterns, and then they have to ration it until the next municipal supply. And if they run out during that time, then they have the opportunity to buy water from trucks, but they can pay as much as 10 times the standard cost. On the electricity side in Israel, it means they'll be getting more electricity at competitive rates. It should be about 4 cents per kilowatt hour for the electricity that Jordan will sell to Israel, compared to the average cost of electricity in Israel, which is about 5 cents per kilowatt hour. Also, it'll mean a much larger share of Israel's electricity coming from renewable energy. And on the Jordanian side, another possible benefit is the creation of solar technology industry capacity in Jordan. It's possible that this could create a lot of high-tech jobs in Jordan. A project of this scale requires the production and installation of many solar panels, and Jordan could become a regional hub even for solar technology.
Right. And any kind of solar field that's constructed not only requires its construction, but its maintenance and monitoring over time. So definitely a potential source for employment in the future. Now, U.S. climate change envoy John Kerry was present at the signing ceremony in November, alongside both the Israeli and Jordanian ministers of energy and the UAE Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Zayed. Can you talk a little bit about why the agreement was important from an American perspective?
Sure. There's, as Gary has said, there's no greater challenge facing our planet than the climate crisis. No country can solve the climate crisis alone. We need to work together as a community of nations. Project Prosperity here is a great example of such a partnership. Global transformation of the energy sector is essential to limit us to the 1.5 degree temperature rise in line with the agreed upon targets under the Paris Agreement. To do so requires us all to develop and deploy a full range of clean energy technologies to reach net zero emission by mid-century. To drive down the costs of new technologies and turbocharge the green energy revolution, the United States is launching a series of what DOE is calling Earth shots, harkening back to the moonshot era, where the U.S. invested significant resources over a short time to reach a major milestone, and in various sectors of clean energy technology. But we're marshaling the innovative capacities of researchers and entrepreneurs to accelerate clean energy breakthroughs. We must also maintain our focus on providing a just and inclusive energy transition so that all can participate in the promise of prosperity brought about by clean energy innovation. Historically, the United States has been the engine of global energy innovation, and it is vital that we revitalize American leadership in the growing global market for renewable energy.
Wow. Thanks so much for your time, Dan. And thank you to everyone for listening in. We hope you found this conversation interesting. Electricity and water are two basic needs that are essential for everyday life, whether for local or personal health, sanitation, education, and agriculture, particularly in this region where water resources are limited and supply is limited, and climate change's impact is already being felt. There's never been a greater incentive for cooperation and problem solving these energy and resource sharing challenges. We hope you found this conversation interesting, and we're wishing you all the best from Jerusalem. Thank you.